What's up, everybody? Josh Armijo here. I hope everybody's doing good and well and stuff. I got an album review to do for you, and I'm going to be talking to you about the new album from the band Decrepit Birth, entitled Axis Mundi. This is released on Nuclear Blast Records. Now, if you're not too familiar with this band, they are based out of Santa Cruz, California, and the best way to describe the sound of this band would be a very esoteric, science fiction themed, technical style of death metal. Yeah. There are lots and lots of bands within the spectrum and style of technical death metal that could be deemed very, very recognizable and synonymous. And one band that really truly comes to mind for me would be Decrepit Birth. This band hasn't put out a lot of albums, but the albums that this band has put out, I would consider to be very important and meaningful. A lot of very special traits to recognize about a band like this. Dan Seagrave artwork, very relentless sort of drum styles, technical fretboard wizardry when it comes to the guitar playing, audible bass, guttural vocals, very distinctive storytelling when it comes to the concepts, themes, and lyrics of this band, and you have something very, very special with what Decrepit Birth has had to offer throughout the years. Most notably, their first two full-length albums through Unique Leader, 2003's In Time Begins, and 2008's Diminishing Between Worlds. You could tell the difference, a night and day sort of difference between that album, whereas the first album had a very brooding, technical, brutal sort of sense going for it. Diminishing Between Worlds had a more contemporary, modern sort of flair going for it, while still maintaining the technicalities that were very well known with the first record. But I think things came to a head in 2010 with their third full-length Polarity, where we really got to see this band fully transition into more modern, straight-up technical death metal. And I believe with an album like Polarity, this really shot the band into the stratosphere in some ways and instances. I believe they were a very well-known and well-regarded band then, but due to the getting signed to Nuclear Blast and then putting out an album like Polarity, it really made this band that much more of a bigger deal. And of course, this band has always been consistent when it comes to playing live shows and touring. They're all over the place, and they really do put on a very good show. But yeah, it's been 7 years since the last album Decrepit Birth had put out, and there's been a lot of thinking, a lot of writing, a lot of band member changes, a lot of ideas floating around, and now we have a more fuller, complete lineup for a band like this, and we have the fourth full-length from Decrepit Birth entitled Axis Mundi. It's 9 tracks, and it clocks in at around 41 minutes in length, and I've been listening to this album for quite a bit, and I've had a lot of time to think about how I really feel about it, and how I think it would be in comparison to previous Decrepit Birth records, because listening to the track Epigenetic Triplicity and songs like Hieroglyphic, it gave me an idea of the band toying with their current sound, but yet adding little bits and flares of brutality in between, which I think is a really nice touch. But I was wondering how the rest of the album would fall out. And let's get right on into the swing of things. Pretty much, if you're listening to a Decrepit Birth album, one of the things you'll be looking forward to the most is Matt Sotello's guitar playing, and he really does deliver some very memorable guitar playing throughout this entire record, and he really is a master craftsman when it comes to delivering guitar riffs, especially on the tracks Spirit Guide and Transcendental Paradox. You get some really, really well thought out and well established guitar playing. It's very technical, it's very masterful, it's very well played. It's not technical guitar playing done for the sake of being technical. There's an essence and a feeling going for it, and I really do appreciate what he does with not only the riffs, the technicality, the solos, the way things are weaved out, and especially towards the later moments of this record, I really do feel that you get a great performance out of Matt Sotello here, and it's pretty much Decrepit Birth business as usual when it comes to his guitar performance here. The bass work on here is very good as well. They brought in a guy by the name of Sean Martinez to do the bass. Very well well done when it comes to his bass work. This is a mostly guitar-driven and oriented sort of record, but the bass guitar is very clear and very audible in this mix. Of course, Decrepit Birth are another one of those technical death metal bands that has to have a clean production sort of value going for them, but I feel that that Sean's bass work on here is very well played, very well heard, very well it's a distinguishable sort of bass tone throughout this entire record, and it does have moments in this album where it shines on its own and you hear the bass work played very well. The little technical parts of the bass sound very, very well here. It's a very solid bass performance overall. Moving on to the drums, they brought in a guy that's pretty much familiar with playing with Decrepit Birth. He's played with them live, but I believe this is the very first record that he's ever played on, and I'm of course referring to Sam Policelli, aka Samus, 66 Samus, whatever his name is. He's got like a bunch of nicknames and whatever, but yeah, this is his first drum performance on the album, and I honestly feel that when it comes to his drum performance, it takes a while to get the ball rolling. I think on the opening track, Vortex of Infinity, Axis Mundi, you get his drum performance, you get the typical fast sort of fills, fast double bass, fast blast beats. He's a very fast drummer. He really never relents and doesn't know when to slow down. That's the type of feeling I get when I listen to his drum performance, but I feel it kind of starts off a little shaky. But as the album progresses, I believe that he does get into his groove and he does play the drums very, very well here in the style that he's accustomed to and knowing how to do it. It's very solid. You do get the very well thought out and timed sort of fills and blast beats and double bass elements that you hear throughout this record, especially for some of the lengthier tracks that are on here, like the Sacred Geometry, Spirit Guide, even Mirror of Humanity. He does a really fine job with the drums on that particular song. But like I said, I think this drum performance starts off a little shaky, but this drum performance does begin to get into its groove as the album progresses along. I think it's a good drum performance, but I do think it could have been a little bit better. And moving on to the vocals, it's the typical Decrepit Birth vocal performance. Bill Robinson is a very distinctive and very recognizable vocalist. He has a very distinctive look, appearance, delivery, very low, guttural sort of tone for his voice. And here on this album, I'm noticing a high emphasis of layering when it comes to his vocals. You get the typical sort of low, growling guttural vocals, but you have his really depraved sounding sort of highs. You get those highs and lows layered together, you get some really solid vocals, but I honestly do appreciate the guttural vocals more here for Bill Robinson's vocals. I think it's really, really solid. He does some great vocal work here on this record. Going back to some of the main tracks of this record, Epigenetic Triplicity, Hieroglyphic, Mirror of Humanity. He does some really awesome vocal work going on here, especially when it comes to the way he delivers the words and the lyrics. It's guttural, but I don't think you'll have a hard time trying to decipher what he says. I always thought he was undecipherable for the longest time, but still, he has come into his own over the years. And it's very interesting to note that on the digital and LP versions of this album, you get some cover tracks. You get an instrumental of the Metallica song Orion, Sepultura's Desperate Cry from the Arise album, and my favorite cover of the bunch, Suffocation's Infecting the Crypts. Very good Suffocation cover. The Metallica cover's pretty cool, but the Sepultura is a little bit of a head scratcher because you get some very solid instrumentation, but you get these very interesting sort of vocals. It's almost as if he's trying to channel the vocal style that Max Cavalera did, which I think is a little bit weird, to say the least. It's not something that you'll be accustomed to right away, but I don't know. The Suffocation cover is where it's at for me. But overall, as far as Axis Mundi is concerned, this album does have its bits of highs and lows, but for what it's worth, I think the highs definitely get the job done here. I do enjoy the pace of this record. I enjoy the riffs. I enjoy the bass work. Just very wonderful guitar and bass mastery. Very awesome vocal performance done by Bill Robinson. Like I said, I think the drums take a little while to get the ball rolling here, but for what it's worth, it's very solid. I don't think everyone is gonna... This is going to have some mixed opinions, I should say, when it comes to the drums, but it is what it is. Samus is definitely doing his thing with Decrepit Birth now. But yeah, as far as how I feel, where it falls into how I feel about this album, I think Diminishing Between Worlds is still my favorite of the bunch, as far as Decrepit Birth is concerned. Polarity, a little bit of a tie between Polarity and Axis Mundi. I'm not really sure how I feel about it. This is definitely something I'm going to have to revisit in due time. So, if I had to think of any favorite tracks, I would definitely have to say Spirit Guide, Hieroglyphic, Transcendental Paradox, Epigenetic Triplicity. I think I keep butchering that, but it is what it is. But yeah, I'm going to leave some links in the description box of how you can get a hold of this album and listen to it. I will leave you links to the songs Epigenetic Triplicity, Hieroglyphic. I believe those songs are streaming on YouTube, and I will leave you links to where you can purchase physical copies. It's available as a CD and a double LP. I believe the LP and digital versions, like I said, have the cover songs if you want to listen to those and get your own opinion on that. And I know this band recently did the tour, the Devastation on the Nation tour. I believe they headlined it, and they may be playing live again, so definitely keep an eye out for that. So again, the album is Axis Mundi by Decrepit Birth. This is released on Nuclear Blast Records. Go check this out. And for a score, I'm going to give this a very solid 8.5 out of 10. There's some good stuff. There's some hit or miss and in between stuff, but for what it's worth, I'm just happy Decrepit Birth are back up in the mix of things with this album. So, if you haven't heard this album, definitely let me know what you think about it, how you feel about it, and how you think it compares to previous Decrepit Birth records, or any of you guys into Decrepit Birth. Let me know. I'm going to conclude this review. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for checking out my channel, and until next time, Army Hill out.